Hello. So guys, I am ready to speak my truth today. As you can see by the title, I am telling you guys the worst OBGYN appointment I've ever had, that I've ever heard of in my personal experience. To start off, this happened last summer and I wanted to make a video about it, but I legit could not talk about the situation without bawling my eyes out, and I just wasn't ready to share it. But today I am. So let's first talk about why I went to this appointment. It was my yearly checkup. If you don't get your yearly checkups, pause the video and go do it right now. Very important. At this point, I hadn't seen the OBGYN, I think, in 2 years because COVID hit and nobody wanted to go to the doctors. You're like, no, I'm gonna catch COVID. So I just didn't go for 2 years. So I was already so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't gone in 2 years. What if something's wrong? Yada, yada, yada. So going in, I was already anxious. And so I was going in for a regular checkup, and I also wanted to get off birth control. I was on the pill. And before y'all start questioning, no, I wasn't getting off of it to get pregnant. I personally wanted to get off of it for 2 reasons. Number one, I didn't want to deal with the side effects anymore. I had some side effects, like I would get depressed sometimes and things like that, but I didn't want the long-term side effects. I just heard so many stories about women struggling to get pregnant after birth control. I know in the long packet of side effects, you can get blood clots, and there's just so many other horrible side effects. I was like, you know what? I want to get my body off of this. And number two, I wanted to just prepare my body to get pregnant. So I do not want to get pregnant. Not right now, and I didn't want to get pregnant last year, but I knew within the next couple of years I wanted to start trying for a family. So I was like, you know what, let me get off birth control now, so by time that I'm like, okay, I'm ready, I won't have to go through this whole process. My body will hopefully be ready to go. So now that y'all know the little backstory as to why I needed this appointment, let's get into the appointment, okay? Disclaimer, I'm not saying the doctor's office, I'm not saying the doctor's name. I'm keeping that confidential just for my own sanity, okay? I don't want to out them. Guys, I'm so nervous to tell this story. I don't want to cry. I'm not gonna cry on YouTube. It's not happening, okay? So I usually have a main OBGYN. However, she is the most popular doctor there. So everybody wants to book with her, all right? So she was completely booked up for months, and I was like, you know what? I really need to see this checkup. I'll just book with anybody who's a female. I personally don't feel comfortable with male doctors. I prefer females, just a personal preference. So I was like, it's fine, book me with any other lady. So they booked me with a random lady. I show up and she's like, hi, how are you? Yada, yada, yada. And she asked me, okay, what are you here for today? As a doctor should. And I tell her, oh, I'm just here for my checkup, and I'm here to get off birth control. And that's where it all started going downhill almost immediately. My heart is racing thinking about it because it just makes me so mad every time I think about the situation. She I could see it all over her face. She's like, get off birth control. What kind of birth control are you on? I'm like, oh, I'm on the pill, but I just want to get off of it. And she's like, okay, see you in 6 months then. I'm like, huh? She's like, yeah, you'll be pregnant in 6 months when you get off of it. I'm like, okay, I still want to get off of it for my own reasons. And she's like, are you sure? I really think you should stay on it or else you're gonna get pregnant. Are you using any other form of protection? And I'm gonna be very honest with you guys, I do not, okay? That's just, I have a fiance, he's my only partner, and we were very mature when we first started doing stuff. Are you clean? Yes. Have you been checked? Yes. If I were to get pregnant, I'm keeping the baby. Hope you know that. That's just what I like to do because, whenever you do things like that, there's always a chance you get pregnant. So I just like to tell the men, I hope you know I'm going to keep it. So we were very mature about it. So I was like, no, we don't use condoms, nothing like that. The look on her face was a look of disgust. She's like, men are dirty. He's gonna give you something. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, is this doctor saying this to me right now? And I was like, oh no, we talked about it. We both got checked. We're both our only partners. We're good. And she's like, and then she just goes on about oh, well, men are cheaters and you can never trust men even if you're married. This is a very essential part of the story. She was white. For those who don't know, I'm Puerto Rican, Hispanic. It does play a part into the story. You'll see why. So she's telling me all this, and I am trying to hold back my tears. If you don't know me, I'm the type of person, I'm gonna defend myself, I'm gonna snap back, I'm gonna tell you off, like, you're not gonna sit there and belittle me. But I was in such shock. I'm like, is this like lady really like saying these things to me? Like, is this real life? I felt like I was like in La La Land or something. I couldn't even tell her off because I'm trying to hold in my tears. I was already like anxious going into it, already holding in my tears because I have anxiety. So now this lady's telling me I'm gonna catch things and I need to be on birth control and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like so then she's like, okay, like open your legs, da da da. So she's doing her check. I was so nervous and holding in a panic attack. My whole body went numb. I didn't even feel her going in. That was my first ever pap smear. Didn't feel a single thing. Everybody says it hurts. I didn't even know she put the speculum in because that's how numb my body went. So as my legs are wide open on the table, she's like, oh, so how long have you and your boyfriend been dating? So at the time, he wasn't my fiance. We were just boyfriend, girlfriend. We had only been dating for a year. I was like, oh, we've been dating for a year. She's like, yeah, if you get pregnant, he's definitely gonna leave you. And she's like, are you ready to be a single mom? I'm like, no, she did not. Keep in mind, you guys, the entire appointment, I'm telling her, no, I'm not trying to get pregnant right now. I just want to get off birth control for my own personal reasons. And I told her the reasons. I explained the reasons that I just explained to you guys. And she's still going on and on about this baby that doesn't exist yet. And I'm like, no, he wouldn't. I'm like, no, he wouldn't, because we've talked about it. We've talked and said if I were to ever accidentally get pregnant, we would keep the baby. She's like, yeah, that's what all men say. And I'm like, oh my lord, oh my lord, oh my lord. So legs still wide open, and right after that she's like, can you even afford a baby? Like the way that I'm saying it, that was her tone. She's like, can you even afford a baby? Looking back, I wish I would have been like, yes, I can afford a baby, I make more than you. That's what I wish I would have said, but I didn't. I was like, yes, if you're new here, I'm a business owner, CEO. I make enough money to provide for myself and to even provide for my family. My mom works for me, brother works for me, grandma works for me, things like that. But I'm not a cocky person. I'm not gonna be like, yes, I can afford it and blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not gonna brag on about that. But it's just the fact that she even said that is like wild. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I initially thought she was only saying all this stuff because I was young. So how old am I now? I'm 24. I was 23 when I was in there. So she's probably thinking, oh, she's young, fresh out of college. She's probably broke as a joke, you know? So that's what I thought. And so then she ends the appointment and she's like, okay, everything looks good. Yeah, I would stay on birth control, and then leaves the room. Somebody came in to draw my blood to do like the STD checks or whatever. So she drew my blood, and I think she could tell I was really anxious. And she's like, oh, you know, like, don't worry about it. That's how Dr. Blank is. You know, she's just trying to look out for women. And keep in mind, that nurse, again, I don't know who she was. She wasn't even in the room when this was happening. So she knows how the doctor is. She was like, oh, like, you know, that's how she is, and you know, she's just looking out for a woman. I'm like, oh, okay. So like the nurse was really nice, but the doctor. And so then I left, and I was still at this point holding in my tears so much I couldn't even talk to the receptionist. I zoomed out of there and I start bawling, like in the doctor's office. Like, it's like a medical building, and then within the medical building there's all these different doctor's office. So I'm still in the medical building bawling my eyes out, and my first instinct is like, okay, let me call my boyfriend. I call him, and he is livid. He's like, oh my gosh, why would she say that? You need to tell your mom, because he knows I wasn't gonna call the doctor back and be like, hey, what you did was inappropriate and wrong, because I was just like, guys, look at me, I'm like choking up even now talking about it. I was just too nervous. I was too anxious. I was just still in shock. He was like, you need to call your mom right now. If you don't call your mom, I'm gonna call your mom and tell her exactly what happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna call my mom. And I was so petrified to call my mom, because one thing about my mom, y'all, she's crazy. She's crazy. Like, if you do something to me, like, I can't say it on YouTube what she'll do, but she's crazy. Okay, so I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna tell my mom. My mom's gonna go over there and be in jail because she's gonna beat the doctor's culo. Like, oh my gosh. So I called my mom, and she couldn't even she couldn't even let me finish the story. I got halfway through the story. She's like, hold on, hangs up in my face, and I was petrified. Y'all know when people are so mad that they're calm? That's how she was. I'm like, oh Lord, what is she about to do? She's about to drive us to the doctor's office right now. She called me back like 5-10 minutes later, and she's like, I just called your father and I'm about to call the doctor's office and they need to know that this was discrimination. And I'm like, discrimination? My dad heard the story. He wasn't happy with the story, like knowing that I don't use condoms and things like that. But whatever, but that wasn't the point of the story. The point of the story was how she treated me. He was like, that most definitely was discrimination, because she's most likely saying, oh, my boyfriend was gonna leave me because I'm young and Hispanic. Because the stereotype of Hispanic and black people? Oh, they're a single baby mama with all these kids. That's the stereotype. Not true at all. So yeah, that's what she thought about me. And the fact that she kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, yeah, that was wrong. So my mom ended up calling the doctor's office, and they were like, oh, don't worry, we'll talk to the doctor and see what she says. Whatever. This was like an ongoing thing for like the next few days. They called back, they were like, oh, the doctor said she was just concerned about Alyssa. Like, she was just really concerned and was trying to help her. Girl, you were not trying to help me. If you're trying to help me, you would, this is what she should have said. When I say, hey, I want to go get off birth control, she could be like, oh, you know, as a doctor, my recommendation is to stay on it. But if this is what you want to do, here are your options. Leave it at that. You know, she's supposed to give her recommendation as a doctor, but she's not supposed to give her personal opinions about how I'm going to be a single mom and I have no money and I'm going to get diseases. Like, all of that was unnecessary. My mom called back again, like, no, she was not concerned, it was discrimination, and they ended up doing nothing about it, honestly. Like, she wasn't fired. I don't even think she was reprimanded. I just kind of think they were just like, whatever. I haven't gone to the OBGYN since. It's actually about that time of the year where I'm supposed to go, and I am so nervous, you guys. Oh, you guys, I'm so anxious. Like, talking about it makes me wanna but yeah, that was pretty torturous. Would not recommend. I would say the only pro to this entire situation was that, hey, I got my first pap smear and it didn't hurt because I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I'm actually pretty petrified to go again this year because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna feel everything. Yeah, that is my story. If you guys have had any similar experiences with doctors, not even just OBGYNs, just doctors in general, or if you have had any discrimination with doctors, anything like that, let me know in the comment section, because I just want to see, is this like a common thing? Was it just a one-time thing with this lady? Is there a common denominator? Is it woman? Is it Hispanics? Is it young? Like, I just want to know. Okay, so thanks for listening to my story time, and yeah, bye.